everyone, and welcome back. It's Boone. Once again, I've kind of shifted my setup a little bit here. I was debating whether or not I wanted to make this video because I actually want to work on getting a better microphone again since my old one broke, and maybe even a better camera, and just finding a better setup that's more pleasant for everyone. But for the time being, I really wanted to make this video since it's related to right now, and I was just in the mood to make a video, so I thought, what the heck, and in the future I may take a small hiatus to kind of get things set up in a way that's gonna be better for the overall for the future in the long run. But right now I figured let's just try something, and we're doing a little iPad video here. But for those of you who have been around for a while, you know that I did a 1 year on estrogen video a year ago, and so as of the 5th of January I've been on estrogen for 2 years of hormone replacement therapy. And so I wanted to do another video to kind of update what that experience has been like for me. And I debated doing this, honestly, because I feel like the major physical changes and noticeable changes of hormones happened pretty much within that first year. So I was not entirely sure whether or not there was going to be like enough to talk about, if it was going to be worth making a video over this. And I eventually decided that I think it is worth it. But specifically, I wanted to focus on sort of the emotional journey it sent me on and the effects it's had on my mood and how that's continued to evolve over the next year, over this last year. It's worth noting I have also been on progesterone now since October. Yeah, October, I think. So that I have also noticed the effects of that, which I'll get into a little bit, but mostly just wanted to focus on how kind of being on hormones for 2 years has affected my transition on an emotional level, and how my mood has changed, and how I feel kind of different in relationship to being able to express myself. So if you recall in my last video, if you saw it, I talked a little bit about how a big shift that I noticed pretty soon after starting estrogen was the ability to cry. And I was very bothered by this for a long time before I started HRT. Even when I felt really sad and really emotional, there was this sort of like barrier to for catharsis for me. Catharsis is the word. Like I didn't feel like I could really attach myself to that emotion fully, and specifically I just couldn't cry. The only time I ever cried before starting HRT was pretty much if I was having a panic attack, like I was under an extreme amount of stress. Otherwise it just didn't happen. And for some people, they may not be too bothered by that, but I've found in the past that crying is a great emotional release. And so when I discovered that I had that ability to cry after starting estrogen, it made a huge impact on me, and I really enjoyed it. It made me feel just kind of more genuinely attached to my own feelings, and like I could express myself in the way that was necessary. I didn't feel like I was locking things in as much. And as time has gone on, especially over these last couple of years, like the last years, it really I've noticed myself being able to cry over like even really small things. Like I was watching the Mr. Rogers movie last night. What's it called? A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And I didn't actually start crying during the movie, but I could feel myself getting slightly teary-eyed at certain parts that I were like happy and emotional. And I get much more emotional over little things now, which I really like. It feels like it is me, and it's a genuine part of my personality that I'm just able to express on a more physical level now that I've been on hormones for a while. And when that happened, it just kind of got me thinking about how being on hormones now for 2 years, it's certainly had significant effects on my body. You know, I've seen the muscle fat distribution change, which I've been very happy with. I've seen like my facial tissue has softened a bit, and there's all these like kind of small-ish physical changes that have definitely been welcome and appreciated, and have helped me kind of express myself more on a visual level. But I've just noticed that my mood overall has been, I mean, I get moody, and I think estrogen does affect me in that way, that I will get irritable sometimes, and just like can get pretty down too. But I feel more connected to my emotions in a way that I wasn't before. I feel like before I was estrogen dominant, when I was on testosterone, the effects it had on my mood just really didn't feel right. And especially, you know, in the ways that I connected to my sexuality, because it did have an effect on my libido, and it felt very, very unnatural to me and very uncomfortable. And I remember even before starting estrogen and just being on testosterone blockers, because there was a period of about, I think, like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, about 5 months. I felt much better just not having that. I was a little bit, you know, it was better after starting estrogen because I felt more more connected to my emotions. But just not having those like weird, uncomfortable effects of testosterone made a big difference. And I feel like before starting HRT, I kind of was sort of playing this part of a stoic, detached teenager that I didn't want to be playing, but just because I felt like the emotions that I had and the things that I wanted to express, I couldn't really do so with the way I was presenting myself. And I do think that HRT was a big part of that, and being on estrogen helped with that. But I also think, you know, it's worth mentioning it was probably largely due to just being able to present, or not being able to present myself rather, as the way I felt comfortable. I wasn't really presenting myself as a girl. And so kind of getting into my more personal emotions was a little bit harder for me, because I felt like talking about it, expressing those things, there was still this detachment and this sort of disconnect, because I wasn't able to really be my truth self. So trying to talk about these feelings that I had that are very genuine and legitimate and personal was difficult, because I was still holding back so much of who I was, if that makes any sense. So I'm not a stoic, detached teenager. I never feel like I should have been, but I did feel like I had to sort of play that role, because I couldn't express myself in a way that I was comfortable with. And so I was kind of private about a lot of things. I wasn't super open about, like, you know, feelings about romance and sexuality and stuff like that, because I just didn't feel like I could talk about it genuinely. I didn't feel like I could really be myself. But now, after 2 years of this being in with an endocrine system, is that the word for endocrinology? Like having the hormones that I want in my body, I feel like just my mood and my emotions are much more in line with how I want to express myself, and just the way that I look and feel and sound and I'm able to present myself to the world is more in line with that, and how I've always felt like I should be able to express myself. So that's the big thing. And I could have probably talked about this in my 1 year as well. It's not totally super new. I just have noticed it more over the second year with, you know, being fully 2 years on HRT now. It's been a pretty decent stretch of time, and I've had a lot of time now to reflect on it and really see the difference of how I'm able to present and express myself. Before, well, even just like within like the first year, I would say, maybe even a little bit longer of being on hormones, even after like knowing that I pretty much always would pass, and people would always, like, strangers would always refer to me as Miss and she and whatever. When I would imagine myself in my head, I would still kind of see myself as a 14-year-old boy, pretty much. Like, that's what I looked like how I looked when I was 14. I had short hair and my voice was deeper. And then, you know, I would like see a picture of myself, or I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, oh, that's not how I look. I'm definitely different now, like on a visual level than I was. And it just got really hard to get used to that. And I feel like people don't talk about that much. And I don't know if that's an experience unique to me, if there's other trans people who can relate. But I think it took me a while to get used to the fact that estrogen did have an effect on me on a physical level. And my presentation had shifted, and people perceive me differently than how they did before. But now that I've been on HRT for 2 years, and my social transition has been happening since even longer than that, I'm so much more used to it now. And so I'm just much more comfortable in general. And I'm not like always constantly appreciating that, but every now and then I'll just think of that and realize how much more comfortable I am in my body than I was before. And I'm like, wow, I'm just so extremely grateful to be, you know, to be able to have had this experience medically. And I know not everyone is as fortunate. There are a lot of people who want to go on HRT but can't. And there's a lot of people who just don't want to go on HRT, and that's legitimate too. But for me, it's been such a huge part just to have just the physical feeling of the hormone in my body, like the emotional, everything, every element of it has been so much more comfortable to the way I want to express myself and present myself. And it's kind of like, it's sort of hard to describe, you know. That's what I aim to do with these videos, is explain my experience, but it's not, it's kind of not possible to fully fully verbalize it. It's really like, it's just, it's hard because most of my life I didn't even imagine that it was possible. But now to have been living and as the way I want to be living for 2 whole years, it's like, it's just so crazy. I've gotten so much more used to it now, and it's unreal to think that I went so much of my life not like this, you know, because this is how I feel like it should have been. And I look at like my hair, I'm like, oh, it's so long. I never thought my hair would be this long before. Or like, just even like having my ears pierced, which I know neither of these things are exclusive to the female presentation, but just, it's like all these little things. And it's certainly not true that like I don't experience dysphoria now. I experience dysphoria pretty much on the daily. There's all kinds of things that I'm still like working on trying to feel better and more confident with, but overall I just feel as though hormones have really, really helped me feel like I don't have to really hold back in how I want to express myself. I feel more open about the feelings I have and about the thoughts I have, and just really everything. I'm more open about my life. I feel more connected to my family in a lot of ways, and I feel like I don't really have to like play any kind of part as a teenager, you know. Like that's what it kind of was for like 13 to 15. I was very like, I was thinking about it, and I feel like I kind of hid behind humor a lot, and certainly comedy is a big part of my personality too. Making people laugh is one of my favorite things in the world, and I would love to kind of make a career out of that if I could. But I feel like that was kind of a coping mechanism a lot too when I was younger, like, because there was a lot of serious feelings that I had that I didn't feel comfortable talking about and expressing. I used humor as a way to sort of just hide behind it all and play this part that was fun and kind of an escapism, but still caused me to hold back a lot of what I was really feeling. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of expected to get a little bit more into the physical changes in this video, but as I think about it, it's really the emotional impact of estrogen I feel like is a lot more interesting, at least in the last year. On a physical level, yes, I've seen more breast development. I also have, my weight has fluctuated a lot, so it's kind of been hard to keep track of some of the physical changes. I was quite underweight for a while, and I'm a little bit less now, so I have noticed, especially with progesterone, as I mentioned I've been on, I have seen more chest development and more kind of like overall the curvier shape, especially with that and combined with the weight gain. It's kind of hard to isolate what has had more of an effect, but yeah, I've been overall just been feeling pretty good about my appearance and pretty confident, and I just look forward to the future, and I'm very, very grateful and fortunate to have a supporting family and to have been able to be on hormones. So if anyone has any questions about my experience, I certainly didn't go over everything in this video. I'd be happy to answer in the comments, or if I get enough, I might just do like a Q&A video. I think that would be fun too. So thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with a better setup.